Hello friends! As you can probably tell, my sound quality is going to be considerably worse today because this room is practically empty. So please excuse the echo. This week, I'm going to review one of my favorite Oracle cards, which are the Archetype Cards by Caroline Myss. So this review is going to be a bit shorter, a bit faster than the last one, because there's less possible debate about this one, because this is about the Jundian archetypes and literary archetypes, and how each side or each archetype has both a light and a shadow attribute. I typically use this deck as an aid in identifying other people in readings. When someone's like, I have a knight or a page, who might this be referring to? So then I draw cards out of this to get a more specific information about the individual. The art is simple, but even with its simplicity, it's evocative. So the positives of this deck: it is very simple. Each card has a piece of art in the middle, name along the top, shadow or light attributes on the top, and then shadow attributes underneath. Typically, what I would do when I read this is, if it comes upright position, then it's the light. If it's reversed, then it's the shadow. And I typically end up, because no one's a single archetype. We are more complex than a single cardboard cutout of a person. And I like that on each card, it gives a short bit, a short blurb. For example, here on the Networker card, where it shows an androgynous but faintly feminine figure with a whole bunch of letters or cards flying around her. Light attributes, it says, enhances unity through the sharing of information, engenders social awareness and empathy. And then shadow attributes, conveys information only for personal gain, spreads fear and falsehood. I like that it is so balanced in that there are both positive and negatives of every trait. So, for example, here on the Angel card, it says, for the light attribute, helping those in need with no expectation of return. But the shadow attributes, acting innocent or angelic to mislead others, falsely claiming to be in touch with angelic guidance. But I really like that they include a lot of the literary archetypes that aren't as common. For example, Exorcist. Because at least in Western media, Exorcist is not a particularly common archetype. But in the East, it's a bit more common. It's a bit more common when you're dealing with particular time periods of Catholicism as well. But the light attribute is freeing yourself and others from destructive impulses. But the shadow attribute is fear of facing your own demons. So I like that it's very, very simple. It also comes with a book. Each of the entries in the book includes some other common archetypal characters based off of this. So for example, the guide has some synonyms that include guru, sage, crone, wise woman, spiritual master, evangelist, and preacher. And then it adds a bit more information than is just on the card itself. So continuing with the guide, it says, teacher of religious beliefs and practices, as well as the spiritual principle of seeing the divine in every aspect of life. You don't have to be a professional preacher or guru to have this archetype. Crone, wise woman, and sage represent the ripening of insight and acceptance of what is. Shadow guide manifests in televangelists, gurus, and priests who place financial gain and sexual gratification over imparting spiritual insight. Look for a continuing pattern of guiding others based on your own spiritual insights. So the book adds additional context to each card, which I also like. And they included 6 blank cards. So you can add if there were any that you feel are important that we're missing. Overall, I really enjoy this oracle. I end up using it fairly regularly, especially when whoever I'm reading for has follow-up questions, because the literary archetypes are so universal. They exist in all cultures. And so I've found this is one of the most universally useful oracles that I've owned. I definitely give this one a high rating. I forget, how was I planning on rating these? Okay, so since I am actually looking at my notes, the pieces that I would rate this on. Art. Does the art add or subtract from the meaning of the cards? In general, most of the cards neither add nor detract, because you're not really reading it for the art on the card, you're reading it for the archetype it represents. So art, for me, is neutral. Formatting legibility. Can each of the cards be clearly identified? Because this deck does not have suits, there's no formatting to worry about there. Titles are clearly printed, easily legible. There's no color issues with fonts, so gets a really high rating for me on legibility. Theme. Does the deck have a consistent voice? Yes, this has an incredibly consistent voice that is very neutral. It is not particularly judgmental as a deck. It is more just observational. And for the book, does it need a guidebook to be readable? No. You can read these cards without the book. The book is very nice, though, because it adds additional info. So those are the 4 categories I would rate it on. I would give this, I would say, a 4.5 out of 5. Mostly because the art, while it is nice, does not particularly amplify the meanings of the cards in my mind. You'll find I'm very much not going to give very many 5s out in my reviews of either cards or books. But that being said, very solid oracle cards. I like using them in conjunction with other decks. And with that, until next time, walk in the light, my friends.